So, I mean, what do you think? Is there enough physical silver to cover paper silver?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Hi everyone, Silver Joker here. Okay, so if you've been following silver at all, then that bit of information there is probably not that shocking to you or even surprising. I mean, we've been discussing this, and this kind of subject has been out there for a long time, that there is just far more paper silver than there is physical silver to cover those paper investments. A lot, and you guys know, a lot of the information that I think is out there about physical silver bullion, a lot of it's hype. A lot of it's meant to elicit a certain behavior from you, be that positive or negative. But there is concrete situations that could really affect the value of physical silver bullion. And when I say value, I don't mean price. I'm talking about the value for what it can do for you. And so there are two that I think are main things that I keep my eyes on that could really affect the value of silver. And one of those is just what the beginning of this video kind of discussed, that there's just far more paper silver ETFs, or however you want to categorize them. They're investments. They're paper silver. They're not physical silver bullion. And that is absolutely one of them. We'll discuss the other one here in just a second. But that can really, in my opinion, affect the value of physical silver bullion. I'll tell you guys why. All right. So I'm sure many of you who are watching this video understand why Ed Moy answered the way he did. Right. But for those who don't understand, let me give you guys an idea of the scale of the gulf or the gap between physical silver bullion and paper bullion or ETFs. Okay, so this was published by this website here called Tavex, and I'll leave a link so you guys can go back and read this article for yourself. But they're talking about an article that Bloomberg published about 7 years ago. And in that article, they talk about the $5 trillion global silver market. So that's everything. That's ETFs and physical silver. It's a $5 trillion market. Now, keep in mind, this was 7 years ago, right? And out of that $5 trillion market, roughly $20 billion of that is physical silver bullion, right? And the reason why that is it says that the annual physical silver production is roughly 1 billion ounces, with silver trading around $20 an ounce currently, which is about the same today. That represents $20 an ounce. That comes to $20 billion. It's a $20 billion physical silver bullion market out of a $5 trillion global silver market. And the reason why that is because they're selling 250 ETFs or paper silver shares to every 1 physical ounce of silver. Now, that's a huge discrepancy there. Okay, so why is that important? All right, first of all, if you read the fine print on an ETF like a SLV, they only have to make good on their promise with fiat. So they can give you currency for your investment. They don't guarantee you physical bullion for your silver investment. I want you to keep in mind, you're talking about a $5 trillion market. Now, if the confidence in the US dollar dips to such a degree that people no longer want it or no longer feel comfortable with their fiat currency and they want their physical bullion, which is why they invested in it in the first place, what is that going to do? Now, this is purely my opinion. I am no expert in this at all. I can only go by my understanding of what I read and what I understand about the markets and how they work, which is very minimal. But just from my understanding, imagine if everybody wanted their physical bullion. What would that do when these companies have to come up with $5 trillion to cover the demand that people want? They no longer feel safe with the dollar. They want their physical bullion. You see how that can be a problem. There's a lot of industry out there, these powerhouse industry like GE and Samsung and Tesla and the rest of these companies, these huge companies that use a lot of physical silver in their products, are not going to run out of silver. You can be guaranteed of that. So what's going to happen? Well, they're going to have to come up with a lot of cash, a lot of currency. Where are they going to get that currency from? What's going to happen there? I mean, you think printing stimulus checks and sending them out is going to affect inflation? Just imagine something like that happening. All right, so, that is just a scenario that I said is just kind of on my mind. I don't want to scare anybody, but that's one of the things that I think about. I think about that in how that could affect the value of physical bullion. And by value, I mean not price. I'm talking about the value of its importance to you and me in our financial health. If silver is in such a demand that people no longer feel comfortable accepting fiat currency, what's going to happen when all they have is fiat currency? What's going to happen to the value of your physical bullion when it's in such a demand? Because, industry is going to need it. They're going to have it. This is what I'm telling you. And I guess this is the point I'm trying to make. A lot of countries are stockpiling physical bullion. And they're doing that for the same reasons we are. They understand that if you don't own it, it's not yours. You can't just say that I got a promise with $100 bill in my hand. That's just a promise. That's really nothing but a promise. And what happens when that promise is defaulted on? What are you going to do? Well, physical bullion is the fulfillment of that promise. And that's why we are stacking it at whatever the cost. And that's why countries are stockpiling it at whatever the cost. Because at some point, and I think this is a matter of when and not a question of if, the fiat currencies around the world are going to fail. And this leads me to the second thing that I keep my eyes on that could really affect the value of my physical bullion.
Venezuela's currency costs much more to make than what it's worth. Inflation in the first 4 months of this year was nearly 300%, and last year it was 3,000%. That's why the country's de facto currency has become the US dollar. But millions of Venezuelans don't have access to it. By slashing 6 zeros off its currency, the government hopes to reinstate the widespread use of its own coin.
All right, now, as you see here, I mean, this is just an example of what could happen. This has happened in other countries around the world in times past. It's happening now in real time in Venezuela, and it could happen anywhere. And if you got your eyes open and your ears open and you're listening and seeing what's going on, you see that the possibility exists for this to happen anywhere. By having an ounce of silver, you insulate yourself from what the local economy, what your government's economy is saying the value of currency is. If you have physical bullion, you have a worldwide currency, a worldwide accepted currency that's real money. And so by stockpiling that now, then you insulate yourself from these things that could happen around us, could happen to us here. And so that's why I keep my eyes on that too. That's another motivator for me to stack as much physical bullion as I can, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know what the economy is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now. But the thing that we can control is how we prepare now for what could possibly be. Governments come and go. They always have and they always will. What you can do is protect your own physical self. You can't control what goes on out there. You can control what comes into your life, what you value. And by determining what level of value you put on your financial health will determine where you go or what steps you take going forward. Like I said, my information, the information I try to present to you is meant to just inform your thinking, to kind of give you a little something to consider. But you do your own thing. You do your own research. Everything that I know and that I've shared with you today, I found by going out and researching it, and you can do exactly the same. Visit those websites and make your own decision about the urgency of stacking and putting away physical bullion. And for me, there's no question about it. It's far more important to me to have that physical bullion in my possession than to try to determine if I'm going to pay the premium or not. Because premiums are going to come and go. That physical bullion is going to be yours in your possession for when you need it. And I got a feeling that need is a little more urgent than it used to be. Okay, so I appreciate you guys smashing those like buttons. On my last few videos, I get a ton of likes, and I'm glad that you guys do that. I'm glad that you guys, if you like my video, you hit that thumbs up. The thumbs up are very valuable to content providers. And if you want to see more of the content that I produce, then hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell, and you'll be notified as soon as I put out another video. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. The silver train is rolling. I mean, we are rolling. And it's picking up momentum and passengers as we go, and that's a good thing. Anyway, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Keep stacking. Peace.